Welcome to another edition of Driven to Lead. I'm your host, Wayne Brannon. In this program, we explore the real stories from key executives to find the leadership lessons that drove their success, whether in good times or bad. We got a great program for you today, so let's make it happen. It's a real pleasure to have on the program today Kevin Wolf, who's the co-founder and CEO of Wind Harvest International. Kevin is a lifelong environmental advocate who is the current chair of the California Clean Money Action Fund. He's the current co-chair of the Ocean Abundance Restoration Program, and he's a president of Restoring the Stanislaus River. In addition, he works in the housing area with being a co-founder of In Street Housing in Davis, California, a new collaborative community idea that's got 300 or 400 such communities around the country. So, Kevin, welcome to the program.
Well, thank you, Wayne. I appreciate the opportunity.
You know, Kevin, all of us are familiar with the large wind turbines now that we see as we're driving around the countryside and we see in various places in our world. They've really popped up, over the last 10 or 15 years, it seems to me, in a way that is completely changing, the way we think about clean energy. A real addition beyond what we'd had with solar. But you have something a little bit unique and different that you've been working on for nearly 20 years. And, while you're the first pre-revenue company that we've had as a guest on this program, I really want to highlight not only your persistence and your perseverance, but the fact that you're pursuing something that's an innovation in this area that's going to have a lot of benefits. Will you tell us a little bit about Wind Harvest International and what you're attempting to do?
Well, I guess you can kind of see from my things I do, right? I like working on the very big picture stuff. With the clean money, it's about how much money affects elections and what happens in Congress. And we need to make that fair. So that's the clean money one. From ocean abundance restoration, we need to pull a lot of carbon out of the atmosphere, and feeding diatoms with dust and missing minerals can create that and restore the ocean. On the Stanislaus, that's kind of a wild dream. We lost that Stanislaus River. It's one of the reasons why I got into this wind program was meeting a person on a Stanislaus River trip when I was a professional river guide. And I volunteered a lot for this organization called Friends of the River. And on it, I met this guy, George Wagner. And he said, hey, there's wind energy. Because around that campfire that night, we are talking about nuclear rancho, 3 Mile Island in 1979 and the problems with nuclear. And we knew that of President Carter's Global 2000 report that said the biggest threat to the future of humanity is going to be climate change and global warming more than nuclear war in the future. And it's like, oh, crumb. And then the only clean energy we had was either nuclear or rivers. And when George said, well, of course, I'm a river guide. I don't want to see any more rivers lost. And when George said there's wind, it was like, okay, that's interesting. And so I met the company. I went to some of their prototypes. I saw how windy it was near the ground. And this guy, Bob Thomas, the other co-founder, he was the manager of the California Energy Commission's wind program in the early 1980s when wind farms started in California. So he really knew his stuff. And he figured out the reason why he got hired onto the program is because he was working on vertical axis wind turbines to make use of this turbulent wind near the ground. Sandia National Labs have been working on it. And here comes these vertical axis wind turbines. And they had their problems, but there was a great vision. It was of this building out the understories of wind farms. So the tall turbines, like this picture behind me, shows the traditional ones, they're way up high. They need to escape turbulent wind. They need laminar smooth flow. So our turbines, you need a different type of turbine to do the turbulent wind underneath. That was the vision. It's a huge vision that you can add an enormous amount of energy in the windiest wind farms in the world. You can power AI data centers on those sites. You can increase the capacity factors significantly of these windy programs. That's the vision. It'll help the world in a major way, and that's why I'm here.
So, just to summarize that for our listeners, what you're saying is these tall wind turbines that are, I don't know, what are these, 80 meters high or something? These capture the wind at higher altitudes, and they're up there not because there's more wind there necessarily than closer to the ground, but they have a specific design that needs smoother wind for them to operate more effectively and not get broken all the time. So there's still a lot of wind below them on these windy spots where they're being placed that's not being captured. And so your idea is to build shorter, more durable wind turbines so that now you can capture this closer to the ground wind that is very turbulent, which means you need a more robust, more durable design than these taller ones have. So that by doing that, you can capture this wind and you can do it, I think, really interesting on the same sites where these taller ones are so that you don't have to expand the sites where the wind's being captured. You can use the infrastructure that's already there. Does that capture it pretty well?
That captured it really well. So I got to tell you a story. This one is of a professor, Dr. John DeBerry out of Caltech. He's studying biomimicry engineering, and fish swim and they create vortices. And these vortices, the next fish pushes off that vortice and they get a lot of additional energy output. So he hypothesized if you could put these vortices close together in wind turbines, you would get a synergistic effect between the turbines. Well, he looked it up, a coupled vortex effect, and he finds out that Bob Thomas had patented and Wind Harvest had patented this concept of if you put these straight bladed turbines very close, like 3 feet apart from each other, you counter rotate them or co rotate them, they'll create different vortices downwind that will suck the faster moving wind from higher altitude towards the ground. And his studies and modeling, he put 16 small turbines out in the Antelope Valley. He did all this amazing stuff. And we had already these 3 turbines that showed it at this level. We had a paper from the California Energy Commission on it. And so now we go, oh, if you put our turbines underneath these tall turbines in wind farms, in the right locations, et cetera, and heights, you can get a 10% increase in the output of the tall turbine without just by adding our turbines underneath.
Yeah, so you get a better energy output from the tall turbines that are already there, and you're capturing energy that's being lost at the ground with the small turbines as well. So I think that's great. I think we all kind of understand when we watch Tour de France or some of the bikers, they're using the draft behind the bikers ahead of them. Race cars do the same thing. And there's turbulent air that comes off the sides of them that they try to avoid, but you're trying to capture it and leverage it to increase the turbine speed and power. That's interesting.
Yeah, geese flying.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. With geese
that
flying,
next,
and
that
if they
next
fly in that formation for a reason, right? So they're
is that
supporting one another.
you
Yeah,
get this these little vortices and changes downwind, and if you can capture that like these animals are doing,
yeah.
you can make a synergistic effect between the two types of turbines.
Now you call this a vertical axis turbine. Can you kind of describe why that's different than the big turbines we see there? There's some differences, I think, in your design that would surprise people if they saw one. I know you don't have one there behind you necessarily.
So, and we're also talking on a podcast. So,
Yeah.
think of a propeller type turbine. A propeller, the axis of the propeller is horizontal
Hmm.
to the ground.
Okay.
Weight of that machine is on bearings that hold that horizontal axis up in a nacelle above the ground. And then the propeller hangs off the front. And that propeller operates in 2 dimensions. And then the whole thing at the top swings around, yaws
Hmm.
into the wind as the wind changes direction.
Interesting.
That's a horizontal axis wind turbine.
Okay, good. And I mean, it helps us to understand what it is. Now, I think there's a.
And the vertical axis. So
Mhm.
we're a vertical axis turbine. So now the drive shaft is straight up and down. The bearings aren't holding that kind of weight except the weight on top. It has straight blades that are extruded aluminum that have walls inside of it. Very
Mhm.
super easy to make, not these shaped blades of the horizontal axis turbines.
Okay.
They're held at 2 points. on each blade versus the propeller type is only one connection to the drive shaft,
Mm.
whereas
Mm.
ours have two connections. And with
Yep.
two connections, that's the core of withstanding the turbulence.
And just to go back to, that two connections to withstand the turbulence, I know you said is a big important feature of the design. I also want to go back just for a second. There's a lot of criticism about, wind farms today because there's a tremendous amount of infrastructure that needs to go into the building of these sites, right? A lot of concrete, a lot of work, a lot of effort, a lot of cost. And the thing that's interesting about your solution is that all of that cost and that expense and that effort has already been done. And you can leverage that with your wind solution because you can actually put these on the same sites. That would make I expect, the earn back potential of your new solution much, much better. But it also would be more environmentally friendly because you're using existing infrastructure, you're not creating new.
Man, and think of the habitat loss, right? If a new wind farm is going to go out into some raw land area,
Hmm.
and instead you can double, triple, sometimes quadruple the energy output. Flat land, you can add more ridge lines like the one behind me in this picture, you can only
Hmm.
double the output. So they
Okay.
got 2 megawatt turbines there. We have 28 turbines around it. So that's how many turbines equals 2 megawatt of our turbines.
Hmm.
So yeah, the idea that you can reuse the infrastructure and the permitting and the zoning and
Hmm.
all the steps that
Sure.
delay projects, and that ties up capital. And so
Yeah.
tying up of capital is a cost of these projects. The last one in California almost took 20 years, and it was built,
Hmm.
finally installed last year. We haven't done a wind farm in California in a long, long time. Here, the thing is the off the shore wind farms, but with the Trump administration, that offshore is over. So now the answer is, well, why not go back to these onshore wind farms? So we did an analysis, got a meteorologist to help us on it, and we can pull 15 gigawatts, 15,000 megawatts of additional capacity in California's 5 wind resource areas by adding layers of our types of turbines underneath. Now, there's no chance that a company like ours can do that much capacity. It's enormous, right?
Hmm.
But so we're going to license our technology, our patents, our modeling to whoever wants it. Vestas, GEs, Mitsubishi, they're all going to want to get into this market. Once we prove that, yes, this Caltech guy is right, it really does increase the energy output. It does not harm these tall turbines. The wind farm owners say, we've been waiting for something like this. And this thing's going to explode, but it's going to need other people to make those turbines.
Yeah, I understand that you're going to have huge investments that'll be required to actually put them down. But I'm excited about the fact that your simulations that you're running are being validated and proven out. You're way down the road in terms of the patents and the certifications and the regulatory road that you need to travel. And the output and cost per kilowatt hour looks to be very attractive. And you've got something that is environmentally more responsible because it's leveraging existing land that's already wind farms. So there's a lot of good things you're doing. So how far are you out from having this solution actually in some sort of execution, either with you and or these partners who will license your technology?
When I could tell the story here, that kind of tells us where we are along the process. Um, I'll preamble it with the idea that there's this in technology hardware, there's technology readiness levels
Hmm.
originally set up by NASA. And for wind turbines, it's a full-scale prototype in is technology readiness level 6. We did that in Denmark. Next one is technology readiness level 7, a full-scale prototype in industry conditions. For us, that's the hugely turbulent wind in West Texas at the UL's laboratory testing site.
Okay.
That we've completed. We did crowdfunding to raise that because we couldn't find anybody who would invest in this technology that's never been successful in so many years of trying.
Hmm.
Now we've got and you pass through the technology level by having your strain gauge data from the turbine match your computer modeling. We did that a second time. We got a peer reviewed paper on it. And so we know that our turbine is ready. So now you kind of unleash the engineers and say, okay, what would you do now that you have a model? And they redesigned it, and
Let
we
me let me stop you in the story there just a second because you said something that's really important. I'm not sure everybody understands, right? So you said that you have strain gauge data that validates the simulations that you've been running.
right.
So just for the those of us who aren't very technically minded, I think that means that it's really important when you run these simulations for the design and the potential output to understand if these simulations are really giving you good real world kind of estimations or projections of what might happen. And so now with this particular test that you've been running in Texas, you have actual data from actual machines that were catching wind, and the strain gauge must be some sort of an instrument that measures the strain on the turbines and the wind speeds, et cetera. And now you've matched that with the simulations and you've seen, okay, these simulations are very nicely estimating the real world effects so that now you can move forward with more confidence in your simulation data. Is that right?
Perfect. So Boeing makes the 747. No plane
Hmm.
has been made like that.
Hmm.
How do they know that when they first fly it out there, that it's going to fly? Because of simulations. Because
Exactly.
engineering software that is taken off of real data from other models, all the rest of the stuff, and you have a validated model, then you can design your 747. In our case, we designed a very sleek, simple turbine that we got 8 patents out of in the design process.
So I stopped you in telling the story. I mean, I want you to continue with the story because we're going to looking for the leadership lessons in this story, and you have such this
Okay.
long journey
So,
of perseverance. So I want to hear it.
so relationships. Fucking be honest with people. Be um, real with people, in your investors, in your people you work with. Keep all doors open. Do not assume anything really negative about people. Ask people for help. See if they want to help. If they want to help, take their help. So the story is that one of our longtime lead investors, she and I invested in the first company way long time ago. We know each other as shareholders in the first company. We continued to both invest as the thing went along. She is one of my best advisors, and she is friends with a guy named Greg Cote, who's a founder of a company, lives on our building, friend near her, and she said talks to Greg about this all the time. And Greg says, "Well, I know a guy on St. Croix who is just bought a refinery down there out of bankruptcy, and I'd like to introduce you to him." So get introduced to this guy, David Johnson, and he has got 2 megawatts of demand that he's using propane to
Hmm.
put to make that energy as he brings this company out of bankruptcy and into real production again. At real production, he wants 60 megawatts. Holy crumb, that's so much energy on a peninsula that's a dredge spoiled peninsula on the south of that property, which is full of all this various debris. We can put up 5 to 7 megawatts of our turbines. That's project one. He's the off taker. So we have a direct PPA with them. The land is
Hmm.
owned, dredge spoiled by the government, and we
Hmm.
have a lease with them. And so we're moving on this. As soon as the turbines get through this, tested down there, assembled, installed,
Hmm.
revalidate the model one more time, which is quick.
Hmm.
Then we order the turbines for St. Croix, and we order 120 turbines because,
Wow.
and it's our first sale. We have it all lined up, or I shouldn't say all lined up. I cannot say that yet. Um, we're getting it all lined up. We are very confident that this is going to occur. And we looks like we have potentially 4 other projects on the island, and they can all meet the investment tax credit deadline of safe harbor by next July. We have to spend
Hmm.
5% on each project. And then once we spend 5% by ordering product from its limited liability companies that own the projects,
Hmm.
and that money flows back into gets this investment tax credit and 4 years to spend the rest of the money. So we have a 4 year build out on these projects. So, but leadership example is have relationships, have these people, they connect you to amazing things that if you have these network of friends who trust each other, trust you as the leader, and then all kinds of magic can happen. with these connections.
So this must be a little bit surreal to you. For 19 and a half years, you've been dreaming about getting this project to this level, and now it's coming to this level. And I mean, you just described, the journey to some extent in an abbreviated form, but you've just got a few more hurdles to get over, but it looks like this is actually going to happen. How does that make you feel?
Oh yeah, it's been a, kind of like almost a spiritual process, which is, hey, it's going to happen. Just got to keep going. The other thing I would say is there's a silver lining in the bad things. So it's not, you have to actually look for it. It's like, oh, I know in that cloud there is going to be a streak of light. I might have to drive around a while and look for it, but it's there. So out of bad things, you got to look for it. But almost always in my history of this company, bad things happen. We move through it, and something good also then happens out of it.
Okay, Kevin, I appreciate that because it sounds like a faith journey to me for sure. But come on, yeah, a couple of times over the years, you've just thrown your hands up and said, "I'm quitting," right?
I did actually at one time start looking for another job.
Hmm.
My wife's like, "Come on, you got to get a salary. You
Yeah.
can't just keep putting money
What a
in."
concept.
Yes. Yeah, I think I'm making take-home pay is $500 a month right now
Nice.
because we're
Well,
raising money in this crowdfunding campaign. I wanted to tell you
mm,
about that. So
okay.
through technology readiness level 8, we have to go back to crowdfunding because the VCs, the family offices, the private equity firms want you to be more proven before they'll invest in new hardware these days. So they become very conservative.
Well,
But
it seems like the VCs and the angel investors may be the kind of the right ones. Certainly, private equity isn't the right play for this.
we've talked to 200 VCs, and they all
Mm,
say get through technology readiness level 8 or get
mm,
lead investor. And the
okay.
angels say, oh, you're too advanced. You've got over $16 million in cash invested in you as a company. We
Yeah.
like coming in early
Yeah.
plays.
They want to be more of a ground floor player. Yeah.
Right. So they were in this zone. It's called the Valley of Death for technology. But we're at
Valley
the
is probably not a great spot for a wind turbine unless the wind's coming
yes,
from the
exactly.
valley.
So we definitely got to exit this thing. So
Yeah.
we're at the
Right.
exit door. We're raising money through this crowdfunding offering through Start Engine.
Hmm.
And in it, we are raising $5 million to get this thing through certification, get us another year of runway, get this data from the LiDAR about how we affect the tall turbines, get the bird data, how safe really are these turbines for birds, get all this data from the St. Croix project, from the Texas project, and then we will be ready for moving this thing out into the world in a major way.
Let's divert for just a second. You mentioned the birds. I wasn't going to mention the birds. A lot of people are still traumatized by Alfred Hitchcock's version of the birds,
Oh God, I remember
but
that terrible.
but there are a lot of yeah. I think my daughter I think was scarred by it. I had her watching; she was too young. But the the story about wind turbines is they do kill birds, and we know that. I'm not sure how big a problem it is or whatever. I'm not advocating one way or the other. But you mentioned something to me when we first met about the fact that your shorter turbines are going to be less likely to harm the birds because of the way they move and actuate allows the birds to perceive them and they would be less likely to fly into them. Is that true?
You got the good memory there, right? That's
Mm-hmm.
exactly. So the couple concepts that propeller turbine is two-dimensional.
Mm-hmm.
Tip speeds are 150 miles an hour on some of these large ones, up to 200 miles an hour.
For the
They're
big ones, yeah. Mm-hmm.
coming down on you or up at you.
Mm-hmm.
Wildlife has not evolved to see objects moving in those dimensions.
Mm-hmm.
They evolved to see three-dimensional objects like trees. Vertical axis turbines have three dimensions, and the blades are coming at the birds or the
Mm-hmm.
bat. And that
Mm-hmm.
motion is something you've probably seen birds avoid your car. So the hypothesis is that these vertical axis turbines are more bird friendly. The one thing that happened with the flow wind turbines, this Darius type turbine that's out of Sandia National Labs, when it was in the Altamont Pass, it showed that it was harming birds at half the rate of the horizontals. So, but we don't know. We can't prove. We have to put up and do the science. So
Right.
we're going to add what's a high definition technology to determine where the birds are a couple hundred meters away, and then slow our turbines down before the
Mm-hmm.
birds arrive if those birds cannot see and avoid our turbines.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's the backup plan so that you can bring
Okay.
turbines into to be
So
safe.
just to support that hypothesis you have about it, or the science behind it, is that I've had a number of birds kill themselves flying into the two-dimensional windows in my home, including the door with glass door walls. I've only hit a bird with my car going at high speeds like one time, I think, in my life.
See, there you go. It is amazing, and it's actually buildings with their, especially their reflective windows,
Hmm.
and cats and
Yeah.
traffic, cars.
Hmm.
Biggest cat killers. Wind turbines kill birds, but at 1/100th, 1/1000th of those things, how many birds they kill. But, they are big and tall, and
Yeah.
people don't like them. So but they still can kill birds, and we're not going to kill
Mhm.
birds.
Oh, that's encouraging. So I don't want to get off on the Birders argument too much, but I wanted to mention it because I thought it was interesting, and I think that you have a actually have a solution for that. So what I do want to talk about is this leadership lesson that you had over the years in building relationships, and really what I also heard in your story is this deep-seated desire to believe, to have faith, and to find solutions, to look even in the darkest of clouds for the ray of light that can take you to the next level. And honestly, I don't know many people in the world who I've met who have the kind of perseverance that you have, even at the difficulty of not earning a lot during this time and having to kind of believe in the solution. And I think all of us, myself, the people who will be listening to this podcast, applaud you for that kind of vision and dream, especially because you're doing something I think that's going to be good. I mean, if it meets your expectations and the simulations are right and you can validate it, you're going to be using existing infrastructure without using any more geography to do it, and you're going to be able to capture a lot more energy in a clean fashion that's going to support all the energy needs that we have that we know are growing and expanding. It almost double or triple what we need today in the next 10 years with all the AI data centers, electric vehicles, and all kinds of other demands on our grid.
So I was just thinking as you were saying that. So I started off the story about hydroelectric power,
Hmm.
and the need for more energy from rivers, and the idea that you have these vertical axis wind turbines like ours, and they can go into these wind farms, and they can actually power those AI data centers because the AI data center can be put on that wind farm, and then you add our turbines underneath and you send the energy to the wind farm, the data center. When it's not windy, the transmission line that's already into the wind farm delivers the electricity needed to the AI data center.
Hmm.
And this kind of makes double use of that land, provides a place for these AI data centers and high energy use
Yeah.
facilities to go.
And everybody's who's in the energy arena. I'm not, but I do follow it because I do work a little bit, not only in automotive, but in data and data science industries. Yeah, almost everyone in the energy field is talking about the fact that we're going to need distributed production of energy to a greater extent than more of the centralized models that we've used in the past. So I think this solution makes a lot of sense. There's one thing that before we, get off of this discussion, and we're going to we need to start winding it up. I want you to tell people how tall your short turbines are, because I can imagine someone thinking these are 5 foot 2 inches off the ground and they're going to cut people up or something. So they're not as tall as 80 meters, but how tall are they? They're taller than humans and most animals. Is that right?
Yeah. So the world of wind is in meters, but we'll go with feet. Uh,
Okay.
so it is our turbines down in St. Croix, they'll be kind of the tallest we expect to make.
Mm-hmm.
Top of their blades will be
Mm-hmm.
87 feet above the ground.
87 feet.
Right. And the bottom
Okay.
of their blades will be about 43 feet above the ground.
Okay. So you're going to be in that range from 43, up,
40 to,
but
40 to 90. That's called 40 to 90.
40 to 90 feet. And so these would still be tall by human kind of measurements, right?
You drive a
But but
tractor under it.
but they're really doing the math here in terms of converting to meters. You got 80-meter big wind turbines. You're really going to be about half the size.
I know those are 300 feet to the hub.
300 feet to the hub. Okay, so you're going to
The
be
blades are 150 feet above that. So now
okay, but the
150
blades protruding down. So the lowest point on the high wind turbines will be how much above the top of
feet
yours?
above the ground.
So it'll still be 100 feet, what, 100 feet above the ground, but you'll be in the 50 to 90. So your blades will be below the blades of the big wind turbines.
Right.
Okay, turbines. Okay, great. Okay, I just want to get that kind of understood because someone's going to be asking those questions, and I want
We
to
can
make
make them
sure we.
we can make them as short as 56 feet above the
Okay,
ground. So we have the
okay,
ability to change the height of the tower. So
okay. And you're gonna change the height for the conditions of the location, obviously, but also for this synergistic effect you're looking for, depending upon the larger wind turbines that are there.
you're right.
Okay.
You got this, Wayne.
Okay. Well, you're teaching me. I'm learning. We all are. So, I think this lesson of resilience and the lesson of working with other people and believing in people and being honest and forthright, those are some messages and leadership lessons that we've learned throughout this podcast series, and I appreciate you sharing those. Kevin, as we're moving to wrap up this conversation, I typically ask two questions of all my guests. I'm going to ask you them as well. Let's rewind 30 years, or a little bit more, maybe. Think about a time in your past when you were a younger man. What would you tell yourself as a younger man to facilitate your success, your happiness, your fulfillment in life?
Oh gosh, that's a tough one. I think I've been doing a good job of it. Create a community, have a loving family, have a lot of friends, do a lot of other things. Don't make your work the only thing you do. Have a long-term vision and a plan. What's your plan?
Hmm.
To move through life, and where do you want to be? And then, live life fully. And then when you work hard, and then do your other things that you're doing.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. In my executive coaching work, one of the things I always notice is how people introduce themselves, and very often, if you say, well, if I said, Kevin, tell me a little bit about yourself, or when you introduce yourself, a lot of times we introduce ourselves and we begin with who we are as a professional or as a laborer or whatever our work is. I might say, oh, well, I'm the CEO of Wind Harvest International, if it were you, right? But why wouldn't you introduce yourself by saying, "Hi, I'm Kevin Wolf, and I have a great family. I'm a father. I'm a husband.
Yes.
I'm a member of a great community. I'm an environmental advocate, in
I'm
my
a leader in
profession.
a bunch of different
I'm
organizations
a
who
leader in organizations.
value
Yeah,
me and my time.
creating the greater good. So, the way I'm using that as an example because I think the reason we introduce ourselves as what we do, not who we are, is often because we tend to define ourselves by that a little too much. And I'm a huge advocate for doing exactly what you just said a minute ago, is leaning in, working hard, believing in what you do, putting all your passion and energy into it while you're doing it. But I'm not a big fan of defining ourselves based on it solely because there's so much more to life. I mean, if you asked me to introduce myself, one of the first things I'd tell you, in addition to my role as a family man, would be that I'm a follower of Christ and that I believe in mutual human respect and shared responsibility. So I'd want to tell you about me in that respect, as well as saying, and I'm a former auto executive and I'm a consultant and a coach, but those things are a big part, important part of who I am, but they're not only who I am. So I like your advice in the way you focused it. So thanks for that. And I'm going to ask you what advice or you would give me about what we should look back on to be our legacy. So you and I fast forward 20, 30 more years, and we're having a moment sitting on that ridge behind you, looking at your successes and having a glass of wine. What do we say is your greatest achievement? What are you going to tell me you're most proud of, Kevin?
Oh, that I still have this great community and friends. The different organizations that I've been working on have made major changes around the world. And look at all of the change you see in wind farms and how much more green energy, renewable energy is being produced all over the world. And one more thing I would say, and we're
Hmm.
putting in a turbine that's like a dam. It'll last 75 to 100 years.
Hmm.
That is a long-term asset that
Might
any,
outlive you.
Oh, it will. Any community that owns these assets like hydroelectric dams
Right.
get the benefits of long-term low-cost energy. And so we are giving a gift out to multiple generations.
Yeah, and I think that's a great way to look at it. As you said, it's really about the people you're touching, the communities you have, the relationships you have, and then when you're giving something, leaving something with the world, like the technology that you're looking to implement, you'll be providing a gift to the people of the future. You won't meet them, but they'll benefit from the work you've done. So I think that's
Yeah.
outstanding. That's outstanding. Well, Kevin, if people would like to get in touch with you or find out about the crowdfunding that you're going to continue to do, how would they do that? Do you have a web address or an email address that you'd like to tell people about?
Sure, they can email me directly,
Okay.
kwolf, WOLF, at windharvest.com.
All
That's
right, kwolf at windharvest.com. We'll get a graphic on the screen to help people with that when this video is produced and edited.
and then they can go to the Start Engine platform, startengine.com, and look for Wind Harvest, and
Hmm.
they can see our offering there. Um, but that is that. Well, it looks like it's going to explode here on Monday when it launches. Oh, I'm going to be talking a month in advance. So, anyways, it should be really doing well. They should check it out and grab the opportunity.
Yeah, that's great. Well, thank you so much for sharing your stories with us, Kevin. Appreciate you being with us. We'll watch your progress. It's going to be interesting to see how this develops, and we're going to remember the words you said about the vision you had for such a long time to make it happen. So, hope to stay in touch. Thanks again very much.
Thank you, Wayne.
All
All
right.
right.
All the best and God bless. Well, that's it for today. Thanks for being with us. If you like our conversations, please feel free to hit the subscribe and like buttons. And if you'd like to make comments, ask questions, or even explore being a guest on this program, you can reach out to us via email. It's Wayne at greatroad.com. That's WAYNE at GR numeral 8 ROAD.com. And until next time, always remember the high road leads to a better place.